Juul was designed to help adult smokers quit, but it got young people hooked instead. The device was so popular, it became a verb.
Juuling. Juuling, named after this brand of vape pen.
At its peak, the company dominated over 70% of the US e-cigarette market.
Juul has said a number of times that it was never their intention to addict a new generation of users, but the truth of the matter is they did.
But in just 3 years, its value plunged from $38 billion to under $5 billion. Now, the company is awaiting FDA authorization while facing multi-million-dollar lawsuits for its role in fueling the youth vaping epidemic. So what does the future of e-cigarettes hold? And will Juul have a place in it? E-cigarettes had been around since the mid-2000s, but none had ever taken off like Juul. The company launched out of Pax Labs in 2015 and revolutionized the tobacco industry with its cutting-edge design.
I think it was the perfect storm. The product was a high-tech device. It looked like a flash drive that kids were charging under their parents' nose.
Co-founders Adam Bowen and James Monsees were hoping to create a satisfying alternative to cigarettes for adult smokers who wanted to quit. The ads painted a different picture, although Juul has repeatedly denied ever marketing to teens. Juul's flavors were fun too. Pods came in mango, fruit medley, cucumber, mint, and creme brulee. At the time, the US was seeing a historic decline in cigarette smoking rates among youth, which had hit a new low of 10.8%.
The kids were tricked. They didn't understand that it was incredibly addictive nicotine. It wasn't the nicotine of the cigarettes of the past.
Marketers organized events and hired social media influencers to post themselves juuling. Soon, users began to share their own content on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, where parents weren't looking. Within 2 years on the market, Juul's popularity skyrocketed. In 2016, the company made up less than 5% of the e-cig market, but by the end of 2017, Juul controlled nearly a third of it and generated $224 million in revenue.
I think there was something like a 600% spike in sales, which is crazy. It's an astronomical rise.
The number of devices sold jumped from 2.2 million to 16.2 million within a year. But Juul's early packaging failed to highlight that pods contained high amounts of nicotine, an extremely addictive substance. There wasn't a warning label on the box like there is now.
It had a 5% and a 3%. My own son said, 5% of what? No one knew what 5% nicotine meant.
Just one 5% Juul pod has as much nicotine as a pack of standard cigarettes.
Because of the formulation, it can be used pretty much all the time. And not only all the time, but you like it better.
I just was going in on it. There's not much nicotine in it, so what's it gonna do to me?
Elizabeth Burgess was 15 when she started vaping in 2016 and would go through one Juul pod in roughly 2 days.
All we knew is that cigarettes could kill you and that this was supposed to be safer than them.
By 2017, an estimated 1.73 million high schoolers were vaping, compared to just over 1 million who were smoking cigarettes. With its newfound success, Juul decided to part ways with Pax Labs and become an independent company. In some high schools, juuling in the bathroom was such a phenomenon that administrators emailed parents to warn them about the dangers of vaping.
It was just every day, all the time. You just meet people in the bathroom to get a hit.
For years, Juul and other e-cigarettes were marketed and sold without intervention by the FDA, but the company eventually became impossible to ignore. In 2018, medical and public health groups like the American Academy of Pediatrics sued the FDA over its lack of action against e-cigarettes. A federal judge later ruled the agency did act illegally by allowing those products to remain on the market unchecked until 2022. Meanwhile, Juul was telling a different story.
A Juul representative came into our son's school and told the kids that Juul was totally safe and about to get FDA approval, neither of which were true.
When asked to respond to this, Juul declined to comment. As concern around teen use grew, in 2018, San Francisco passed a ban on flavored tobacco products. The number of high schoolers vaping rose to more than 3 million, and Juul's market share increased by 160% within a year. The vaping giant was at an all-time high and seemed untouchable until the FDA declared youth vaping an epidemic.
They let this industry be unregulated for years. So everybody blames Juul, but they were taking advantage of a market structure that was put in place by Congress, by the FDA.
In September, the agency launched the largest coordinated enforcement effort in its history, issuing warnings and fines to retailers that illegally sold e-cigarettes to minors. Then the FDA seized thousands of pages of documents related to Juul's sales and marketing practices. In response, Juul got rid of every flavor except tobacco, mint, and menthol from stores, and promised to enhance its online age verification system. It also phased out all social media accounts, which had been accused of targeting teens for years. Amid the controversy, sales continued to soar, as Juul was having its best year yet. Co-founders Bowen and Monsees had always portrayed their company as the one that could take big tobacco down. But at the end of 2018, Altria, one of the world's largest tobacco brands, invested $12.8 billion in Juul, taking a 35% stake.
That was a moment for Juul that the glass shattered inside the company. And some of the employees point blank said to the founders, "Have you been lying to us this entire time?"
The deal boosted Juul's value to $38 billion and made its co-founders billionaires. But not for long.
2019 is where the wheels kind of start to fall off. A lot of lawmakers get interested.
Like Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, who opened an investigation into whether or not Juul had actively marketed its product to American children.
We've seen this movie before with combustible cigarettes when so many children and teenagers were smoking. We don't want to see the sequel.
So in July 2019, Congress held a 2-day hearing with co-founder James Monsees testifying.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head how old you need to be to create an Instagram account?
I don't.
13. You have to be 13 years old.
The real tragedy is what they didn't communicate to young people was that the real lifestyle they were selling was a lifestyle of nicotine addiction.
Students like Meredith Sun also gave testimony about Juul's in-person marketing tactics.
Did the presenter call Juul quote-unquote totally safe more than once?
Yes.
What impact did those quote-unquote totally safe comments have on your classmates, some of whom may have already started vaping?
For my classmates who were already vaping, it was a sigh of relief because now they were able to vape without any concern.
But research shows teen vaping does come with negative health effects.
For children, it's clearly dangerous. They have developing neurological systems, pulmonary and lung systems, brain function.
It creates pathways for further addiction, increases anxiety, it increases depression.
Then came a suspicion of links to a mysterious lung illness.
Things really went bad for Juul when the EVALI outbreak hit.
EVALI stands for e-cigarette or vaping use associated lung injury, and cases were popping up everywhere.
The CDC trying to extinguish the health emergency linked to e-cigarettes.
In an interview with CBS, Juul's CEO shared grim advice for those who didn't already use nicotine.
Don't vape, don't use Juul.
Elizabeth wishes she had heard those words before being diagnosed with EVALI.
They took a picture of my lungs and like regular lungs, and it just looked like they had fog all over them.
Later, the outbreak was linked to bootlegged vaping products that contained vitamin E acetate, an additive that can interfere with normal lung functioning when inhaled. Juul said its products did not have vitamin E acetate, but juuling had become synonymous with vaping, so the damage was already done. And Juul's once promising global expansion halted. Soon states began filing lawsuits against the company. Then, in September 2019, CEO Kevin Burns resigned, and all advertising in the US was suspended. School districts across the country started to sue Juul too. Under pressure, Juul's new CEO removed mint pods from the market. The Trump administration had also just announced a federal ban on almost all flavored pods, and raised the legal tobacco age to 21. These strategies seemed to pay off as teen vaping rates dropped from 2019 to 2020. But the following year, Juul's legal battles came back to haunt them.
They settled with the state of North Carolina for $40 million. They settled with the state of Arizona for $14 million.
And just as the FDA was set to rule on Juul's authorization, it decided to postpone the review. The agency did, however, move forward with another vaping company. View Solo and its tobacco-flavored pods are the first of their kind to be legalized by the FDA. So why delay the ruling on Juul?
I hate to say it, but I think big tobacco has sway with the FDA. The acting commissioner came before my committee and told us that she believed in our conclusions with regard to flavored e-cigarettes as well as the nicotine content of e-cigarettes, and yet we're still in this situation where they haven't acted.
The FDA told us that no one has sway over its decision, and that it evaluates tobacco products based on the risks and benefits on the population as a whole.
If they ban, like vapes and stuff, people are not going to be like, hey, well, what's the next best thing that has nicotine in it?
In a statement to Insider, the FDA said it's still evaluating applications for Juul's products and is committed to acting on them as soon as possible. For parents like Dorian and Meredith, their fight will continue as long as menthol pods are being sold.
When we know millions of kids are using menthol-flavored products, how can it be that they have still allowed these products to remain on the market?
But in 2021, Puff Bar overtook Juul as the #1 e-cigarette choice among high schoolers. The disposable device is not subject to FDA regulation because it uses synthetic nicotine. Today, Juul only ranks 4th in popularity, and vaping among high schoolers is still in the decline, dropping by 42% from 2020 to 2021. But the CDC notes these survey estimates may be underreported due to COVID and remote learning. At the same time, cigarette sales are on the rise for the first time in 20 years.
The FDA is in a strange position because on the one hand, they want to be able to promote having this alternative for adult smokers. But on the other hand, they're faced with this company that helped create a new generation of nicotine addicts.
Juul told Insider it was committed to a reset of the vapor category to combat underage use. But even if Juul survives with its now limited range of pods, it will likely be under even greater scrutiny than ever before.